Hello, guys. This is a review of the movie Boy A. Boy A is one of the most serious, impactful films I've ever watched in my entire life. It's really, really heavy on the soul. I had a chance to watch this film when I purchased this particular copy. Um, I don't know, maybe 6 years ago or so, and I recently rewatched it. I think last month. Like I said, it's a very, very serious film, so viewers' discretion is advised. This movie is about, I would say, a teenager. His name is Jack. He spent most of his life, well, his years since being a teenager. You haven't really lived much. He spent it in some sort of detention place, either jail or what they call in the States juvie. He is given the name Jack. Jack is not his birth name, but we're gonna refer to him as Jack, right? He has a caseworker whose name is Terry, and they're trying to get Jack back integrated to society. And he's obviously both excited and nervous about it because he hasn't been out in such a long time. And um, I mean, he's getting brand new shoes. You could imagine what it's like to finally come out to the real world and try to be just a regular citizen. He gets a new job and makes a new friend. We're gonna call him Chris. I think that's his name, his friend. And he meets a girl where he works. Her name is Michelle. He falls in love. She falls in love with him, and everything seems to be going fine. Throughout the movie, we see flashbacks of how this happened in the first place. We see that as a kid, he was bullied, and a tougher little kid befriends him, helps him out with the bullies, so they start hanging out. And it isn't revealed immediately, but later on, we find out that the friend who saves Jack was also tormented as a child and abused sexually. So he had a lot of rage and anger that he took out on other people. It's so difficult even to talk about it. Trust me, like it's a heavy film. Anyway, um, the story progresses. Jack seems to be doing well. In the meantime, as a side story, we have Terry, who has a son around the age of Jack, who is not um, very capable of sustaining himself, of finding a job. He relies on his dad. His mother passed away. There's a lot of baggage there. There's a lot of things. Anyway, at one point in the movie, the son of Terry, um, is hanging out with his dad, and his dad mentions something like, "You are my proudest achievement." Referring to Jack, of course. So the son gets really envious and decides to go into his dad's laptop and reveal the identity of this person, Jack. Jack, up to that point, had saved a girl um, from an accident. He had built this reputation of being just, funny and caring and loving to his girlfriend and a good coworker, a good friend. He started hanging out, like I said, with other people. So when the news come out that he had spent most of his life in secluded because of as a punishment for a crime that he did, then everybody turns their back on him because through flashbacks we learn near the end that the crime that he committed was murder. There was this girl who was making out with this other little kid. They were kids, all of them. And then Jack was with the little friend that I mentioned, helped him from bullies, or saved him from bullies, I should say. And they just go back and forth, little kid talk, and the Jack's friend starts slicing the girl's wrist and forearm for no reason. Well, I mean, they were going back and forth, and then they are seen going into like under a bridge in the darkness, and we find out that she is murdered, and they don't clarify who murdered. Like, it was it Jack, was it his friend, but it doesn't really matter because they both cooperated. I know Jack even picked up the knife, and we also find out that Jack's childhood friend was um it is, like I said, left out in the air. It seems to be by suicide, but Jack feels like he was probably murdered by other people. Um, and the last scene is Jack standing over, oh gosh, was it a bridge? Like maybe hinting at the fact that he's probably gonna die of suicide. He left some goodbye messages to Terry and his friend, and he talks to Michelle. Let's go ahead and talk about my opinion about the film. That's it for the plot. Staying at this last thing that I just commented on, him saying back to Michelle before he potentially commits suicide. That's one of the strangest scenes, in my opinion, in the film, because I really don't think, like, well, what are the chances of him meeting Michelle at the beach, the pier? It's not very likely that they would both be there. I can't remember if they ever talked about being in that particular place before, like really liking that place. So it makes sense for other movies where they know where they're gonna be. For example, Handsome Devil, where the main character finds his friend in his dad's boat because that's where he mentioned he used to spend a lot of good times in. But anyway, they don't make mention of it, so I'm kind of leaning towards Jack having imagined saying goodbye to Michelle and her being supportive because I mean, in a way, supportive, right? When she finds out that he's a murderer, she doesn't reply to him, doesn't even answer the phone, and doesn't try to look for him. And right there, she just mentions, if you would have told me from the beginning, I would have understood. And Jack tried to tell her in the beginning, but Terry um, reminded him, hey, that's very dangerous. You really shouldn't do that. You don't know. You're like putting yourself in danger. We work so hard. So he ends up not telling her anything. And yeah, that's one of the things that I'm a little bit like, I don't really know. And oh gosh, I mean, to really watch this film, I really recommend that you do it alone or with someone that can actually watch a film the way that they're meant to be watched without like too much commenting or outside factors. Have yourself a little snack, but this is a film that really takes you in, like I said, and at least for me, it took me in and allowed me to imagine myself in that situation and how difficult it would be to be in Jack's shoes. It's a very sad film too because he had all of these things going on for him. We go to the very discussed question of, does a person who has committed X, Y, and Z crimes, do they deserve a second chance? And I really do think that everybody deserves a second chance. Obviously, if you've done, this crime and this crime, and it's just something that you just do over and over and over, that's like your second chance that's long past. But for occurrences the likes of these and crimes the likes of these, I really do feel like through therapy, which he did receive, there should be a case by case analysis, and obviously, with the right supervision, people could change their lives around. We see a lot of topics that we could go over. Bullying is one of them. And, well, let me finish one thought because there's a million things going on in my mind right now. Bullying. Jack is bullied as a kid, which leads him to become friends with a boy who can protect them and just be friends with, right? Had he not been bullied, none of this would have happened, probably. And then we go to the sexual abuse that his friend experienced. Had he not been sexually abused, maybe none of this would have happened, because he wouldn't have had this you know anger built inside, and understandably so. Another thing that we could go even um way back, before the bullying occurs, before all of that, maybe if Jack had parents that were more involved, I mean, maybe if the school had better resources, who's to say, right? Who's to say? But once you get a kid as young as he is, or as young as he was, and he does something as terrible as that, it's just such a learning age, I really cannot imagine. That's the hard part. Like, the movie draws you in and makes you feel sympathy for the character, but then again, it's also so hard to visualize your life like that, because I know that firsthand. As kids, we have a lot of common sense. I know I had a lot of common sense to a degree, right? Like, I did a lot of dumb things and dropped a lot of plates, and I made a mistake. But when you put yourself in a situation of visibly seeing how hurt another person is, no matter how much anger you feel, like I had in my mind visions of vengeance when people were mean to me, like, oh my gosh, if this kid pushed me, I'm gonna knock him out, I swear. Like, I believe we all have that to a certain extent. But then once you actually get your revenge as a little kid, like let's say you smack a girl and then she starts crying, you start feeling like, oh poop, like I'm in trouble, like, or I did something wrong. And it's just human nature to feel compassion for others and know when you cross the line. And it's just, like I said, common sense to me and to a lot of people. In this case, I'm willing to I don't know, risk it and say that he did feel bad, but at that point he had been hanging out with the other friend so much, and he trusted him, and he thought that he'd rather be the abuser than the abused, and that's the options that a lot of people have to choose from. I feel like also, like, gang related. Maybe you're not born wanting to spend your life, running from the law and committing crimes and doing this and doing that, but that's the environment that you grow up in. And you go ahead and go down that path, and then we do see people recuperate. I mean, that's not, I'm just assuming that they're also into drugs. I mean, it's a completely different thing. Well, I mean, it goes hand in hand. But it's just a lot of topics that this movie goes over, and that's why it's so difficult, because it's not just one thing where you could say, well, just don't do this and then you'll be good. No, it's a lot of things. And the aftermath. um let's put aside everything that I just mentioned, with the things that could have obviously helped him maybe not ever experience um committing a crime in the first place. Let's just ignore that for a second and go to the, what if it already happened? Okay, now it already happened, and you're receiving help. You've demonstrated that you could follow directions and not hurt anybody else, and you're very excited and very willing to be supervised, but just, make your way back into the regular city life, or small town life, whatever it is, but outside, not behind bars. What do you do then? How could you control your demons? Sometimes I do, like, the dumbest thing. I maybe say something mean to someone that I care about, and now I'm thinking about that over and over, and I'm like, how am I going to apologize? What's too much? What's too little? Is it enough? These dumb things that we go over in our minds, and it's like, it's not really that big of a deal. Oh, well, you called her stupid, well, apologize, or if you feel it, if you're sincerely apologetic about it. But once you go through all of this, how can you pretend that none of that happened? And that's a problem that Jack has throughout the movie. Is he talks to Terry and he cries and he explains like, that is, I'm lying to everybody, I'm deceiving everyone that I care about, all the relationships that I built. And that's another thing that really hurts me, is the fact I could have been a lot less affected if Jack's life was very tumultuous and if he had a tougher time um reintegrating to society. I would be a lot more like, well, it was just so tough, and then in the end he kills himself. Well, it happens, based on the crimes that he committed and everything that followed. But it wasn't that way with Jack. Jack had an innocence to him because he didn't really get to live out his crazy years, his rebellious times, and his I'm gonna talk back to you, I'm gonna take the car. He didn't get to live that. Right after the crime was committed and he was sentenced, that was his life. His life was just correction, 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 correction. So he was a good guy by the time he came out. And this character Jack, he was a good guy. You probably saying, not of course not everybody. And in real life, I wouldn't be able to say that. That's what's hard about this, is pointing, you are good, you are bad. Who are we to say? I know one thing for sure though: when you are in a position of power and deciding whether someone lives or someone doesn't live, that's a dangerous thing. It reminds me of the Hunger Games in a way, because we're living in this dystopian world where we see Katniss Everdeen as the symbol, Mockingjay, the symbol of freedom and of a better life, right? But then we see that the president from that district underground, she's hungry for that power. She wants it, and once she gets it, Katniss decides to shoot her arrow at her because she knows that she's just gonna be like President Snow, female version. The person who, like I said, the attacked, once they reclaim that power, sometimes can become the attacker. And that's what we don't want. And that's what I'm saying every time I hear of other countries where they're like, oh my gosh, we're gonna destroy all of the criminals, and like they're deciding who they're gonna kill and why and how fast and how bad and how much torture they're gonna go through. Who are you to say that? Obviously I wouldn't want people out in the streets killing my family, so of course do what you have to do in terms of locking people up, but there has to be a level of humanity even for people who commit hideous crimes. Because like I said, we're not God. We cannot make, in my opinion, the decision of, yes, you're going to die now, unless it's in self-defense directly. For example, if the girl would have had a rock and then just smacked one of the kid in the heads, well, she defended herself. It was either her or them. But it's just so many topics. But like I was saying with Jack, it was super super sad to see him, to see everybody turn their backs on him. They didn't even let him explain. And of course, having done that, why would you do that? But so many years have passed. They didn't even give him a chance to explain. They just immediately assumed that he was a monster. And he was a human who did a monstrous act, but he wasn't himself a monster. And to see him, because like I said, in the movie, he is a good guy. He comes out a good guy, and I'm 100% sure, and everybody's 100% sure. So in this particular case, in the movie, Jack is a good guy that really didn't deserve all of that. You could see him like hanging out with, like I said, with his friends and just trying to be normal. And it really sucks. It must be the most difficult thing to live like that, honestly. Like I said, Jack um, still had that level of innocence to him, and he just wanted to to be a part of everything that people his age are a part of. So it was really tough to see him be doing like see him do well at his job and with his girlfriend and with his friends, and then have all of that taken from him, that's something that anybody could relate to. Well, not anybody could like directly relate, but can imagine and empathize for, because whether or not it's to this extreme, we've had losses. Like, let's say maybe you are in mixed martial arts and you're like, your goal is to become a champion, but you get a very bad injury. Now you don't have any of that. Now you don't have the sponsors. Now you don't have the money. Now you don't have the recognition. Or you're in a relationship and they cheat on you, and then you lose all of that world that you built with that person and all the images that you thought of how life would be in 10 years or whatnot. This dude, everything collapsed. So it really sucks. I felt like I just wanted to talk to him. I'll be like, hey, like, we could talk it out. Just wait. You're not even giving people a chance to process it. But it's something that, in a way, I feel the movie also tells you that some burdens are just too heavy to carry around, and it just happens that you're probably better off dead. Um, but like I said, I don't have the answers to that. I think all of us know in our hearts what we want, but we're not always able to do the right thing. And if you know that you're not able to do the right thing, then definitely seek help. But it sucks. It really left me feeling really bad, honestly. But at the same time, it's just such a good film and it's so real, and I could appreciate realness in everybody's work. So the artists behind this film, those who, if I mean, I didn't check before, sorry if it was just one writer and director, if it was a couple. Um, but everybody involved in the film, I could say that they did a very good job. This is a very underrated film. This is a blockbuster. Imagine blockbuster. Most of you are probably not even gonna know what that is, depending on how old you are. It, I think it's British. So I mean, in the States, it just wasn't. And I see a lot of indie films, with a lot of awards, a lot of prestigious awards, but they just don't get promoted well enough to be, something that I could tell my friend, like, oh, Boy A, the movie they're gonna be, what Boy A? What are you talking about? It's not like Toy Story, and that makes sense, being that that was a terrible comparison. But there are other films, that are very popular, and that I'm like, well, this is a lot better. And it's objective, but truly, to have good performances, good writing, to have it be about the characters and not about anything else, it's truly a work of art, in my opinion, and it should be, applauded, because the movies like these don't come very often. I don't remember how I even got to it. I think, maybe on a list of most disturbing films, probably. But yeah, I would give it a rating of 10 out of 10 in its category. It's an amazing film that I would recommend to mature audiences. If you are not like of age, then ask your parents if it's okay, because I feel like there's a lot of lessons and a lot of conversation that could arise, useful conversation, by watching these type of films and commenting on them, having, an open an open talk about, hey, what do you feel about this, what do you feel about that, how are you doing in your own life. That's where all of like the pre-bully, prevention comes in. We don't need all these like great resources and everything, because if it happens, perfect, we have them. But there's a lot of work that could be done in children's homes that could, for sure prevent these things from happening, or minor things, but still, we need a solid base. Kids need a solid base, especially like even at my age. Sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do if I'm, if I find myself alone, without, not physically, but without the support that I feel. It would be really, really hard. So yeah, I guess that's it for this one. Like I said, I would totally recommend it. And thank you for watching.